Oh crap, assignment. Bourhill versus Yan. Okay.
You don't think this is interesting? Bourhill versus Yan? I will make it interesting. Hit it!
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bourhill versus Yan. One, two, three, four, five. Bourhill versus Yan is a stunning case about a fisherman's wife who is pregnant, walking down the tram and heard a loud noise. There's a car running fast like wind, colliding with a motorbike. It's like the sound peered through her ears and she got shocked. Oh, what can she do? I don't know, my lord. To me this is just like a crash. Everything's fine except the crash sound. So what's next? Let's sing it out loud. A little bit of Bourhill on my left, a little bit of Mr. Yan on my right, a little bit of collision, here it is. A little bit of accidents, all I see. A little bit of bloodstain on the spot, a little bit of shocking's all she got. A little bit of back pain, here it is. A little bit of baby, oh it's dead. Walk down a tram and move it all around. Walk towards the sea and see what's around. One step left and one step right. Hit to the front and see what's there. See the stain once, you're gonna shock next. And the black wing falls in the deck. A little bit of Bourhill on my left, a little bit of Mr. Yan on my right, a little bit of collision, here it is. A little bit of accidents, all I see. A little bit of bloodstain on the spot, a little bit of shocking's all she got. A little bit of back pain, here it is. A little bit of baby, oh it's dead. A little bit of Bourhill on my left, a little bit of Mr. Yan on my right, a little bit of collision, here it is. A little bit of accidents, all I see. A little bit of bloodstain on the spot, a little bit of shocking's all she got. A little bit of back pain, here it is. A little bit of baby, oh it's dead. Oh no, it's dead. Get shot with an accident like this. You can't run, you can't hide. You and me gonna get it here.
All rise.
John Yan was admittedly negligent of speeding, but that in no means constitute breach of duty to the pursuer. The collision had no way injured her physically. As a reasonable man, John Yan would have had to contemplate the consequence of his action, but it was doubtful that he would have anticipated the nervous shock that would follow his speeding. He owed no duty to the pursuer, and I'm of the opinion that appeal should be dismissed. John Yan was in no way guilty of negligence in relation to the pursuer.
The cyclist, John Yan, was travelling at excessive speeds. The plaintiff had her back turned to the driver's platform at the time of the accident. Her role in the situation was merely the part of the bystander. She she had only heard the accident. In hearing the conundrum, she walked over to the scene where she only saw the blood of the late John Young. This sent her into a nervous shock that supposedly led to the injuring of her back and the loss of a child. It is within my opinion that the plaintiff's action was enough to raise the question of liability, but not sufficient as to claim a breach of duty by John Young.
Admittedly, John Young was negligent towards the person whom he collided with, but owed no obligation to the pursuer. The appellant was never involved in the said accident and was never in bodily danger nor reasonable fear of danger. The cyclist was always in control, and his negligence was not to those on highway but to those who tried and intended to turn in front of him into the side road. The only allegation found was towards the traffic proceedings across, or at any rate down the road towards the cyclist. In order to establish a duty towards itself, the pursuer must show that the cyclist could have reasonably foreseen injuring her emotionally only as a result of his negligence.
John Young was certainly negligent in an issue between himself and the owner of the car which he ran into. Can it be said, apart from everything else, that it was likely that a person of normal strength would have been affected in the circumstances? She saw nothing of the actual accident. I cannot accept that John Young could reasonably have foreseen the likelihood that anyone could have been placed as the appellant was. John Young was guilty of no breach of duty to the appellant.
It is established that the woman had suffered shock and her ability to work was affected. The question here is whether John Young can be held reliable for what the pursuer had suffered. It is now well recognized that an action will lie for injury by shock sustained through the medium of the eye or the ear without any direct contact whatsoever. She must show that he owed a duty to her. John Young was clearly negligent. The question with the occupants of the motor car with which his cycle collided. It can be said that he ought to have foreseen that his excessive speed could have involved the possibility of a collision with another vehicle. He was under no obligation or owed no duty to the pursuer. It is within my opinion that the appeal made by the appellant should be dismissed.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So this brings us to the end of our video. In short, the plaintiff, Mrs. Bourhill, was transported by a tram car to her location. Once she had arrived, a collision had ensued. This collision was the cause of our late John Young, who had collided with a civilian motor car. Now, in hearing the collision, Mrs. Bourhill, now wait, keep in mind, she had only heard the collision. She was not directly involved in it whatsoever. She hadn't even seen the collision. Now, Mrs. Bourhill had walked over to the scene of the incident when the body of John Young had already been removed. When she observed the blood-stained tar, she had gone into nervous shock and her back was severely injured, which also led to a miscarriage. A civil suit was ensued where Mrs. Bourhill had sued the defendant's father, and as a verdict, it was reached by the court that John Young had not breached any duty of care towards Mrs. Bourhill.